On this edition of The Correspondents, a police protest in Dallas, Texas turns deadly with at least 5 officers killed in the streets by a gunman or gunmen. A spate of suicide terror attacks kills hundreds in major cities in the Middle East, including Istanbul, Baghdad, and some of the holiest cities in Saudi Arabia. And presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump slams his Democratic rival's handling of top-secret emails as Hillary Clinton's campaign joins forces with the U.S. president. And welcome to The Correspondents on Voice of America. I'm Mil Arcega in Washington. We begin with the brutal shooting deaths of 5 police officers in Dallas Thursday night, the deadliest night for U.S. police officers since the terror attacks on September 11, 2001. Dallas police said Friday 3 suspects were in custody, that 1 suspect was killed, but that information may be changing. What we do know is that this happened during a peaceful demonstration to protest the slayings elsewhere of 2 black men by white police officers, one in Minnesota, the other in Louisiana, just hours apart. The Dallas protest understandably erupted into chaos as soon as shots were fired. Police say a sniper opened fire on police, that he was angry over Black Lives Matter, and that he wanted to kill as many white police officers as possible. They say the suspect or suspects intended to inflict a maximum amount of damage, and that he spoke of a possible IED, an improvised explosive device, that has yet, as we know, yet to be discovered. Now, it's a story that is changing as we speak. The demonstrators in Dallas were protesting the police killings of 2 black men in separate incidents this week. As we said, one in Minnesota, the other in Louisiana. The latest in a string of shootings widely viewed as further examples of an excessive use of force by police with minorities. And joining me now for the latest, as we go to air at least, on this deadly shooting is VOA senior analyst and investigative reporter Jeffrey Young. Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us this morning on such short notice. It was a very sad day this morning as the nation collectively woke up to the news that 5 police officers were killed. The Dallas police chief just held a news conference. What are you learning?
Police Chief David Brown had a news conference earlier this morning. And in that news conference, he described the shooting scene at El Centro College on the parking garage up on the 2nd floor. This is a very calculated move on the part of the shooter. From the 2nd floor, he had vantage points. Because of the demonstration, the Black Lives Matter demonstration, there were police providing security and just keeping the streets safe during the protest that was underway. So the police were deployed in the area. This is so calculated. The shooter knew there would be plenty of police to shoot at. He was up on the 2nd floor. He had a vantage point. He could aim down at the police. We don't know if there was only 1 shooter or possibly a second one. We have conflicting news reports that say possibly out of the 3 people that are in custody right now, according to reports, one of them may be a shooter, but that's not been confirmed.
But this sniper that we're talking about, he has been killed by police officers, apparently with a robot?
It was a very ingenious thing to do by the police. They used a robotic device, a robot with a long extension arm, and on the end of the extension arm was a bomb. And because the police couldn't get a clear vantage point, a clear shot at the shooter, they sent the robot to the shooter, who I'm not sure if it approached him from the front or behind, but it came up to the shooter and detonated the explosive device, and by doing that, killed the man in question.
Clearly, Jeff, this man was very upset about the recent killings of 2 African-American men. Is that, in fact, the motivations for this crime spree, this shooting spree?
From what Chief David Brown said in his news conference, and you repeated some of the things that he said, that indeed, the chief said the shooter was angry at the police, that this was definitely connected to Black Lives Matter movement, that he was looking to kill white police officers. But he also said, the shooter said during the hostage negotiation that happened, except there were no hostages. I just want to say negotiations. During the negotiations, he said that he, the shooter, was not affiliated with any movements or groups. So at least right now, this moment,
there is no terrorism connection.
We don't take a leap. I mean, this is an act of terrorism, but it's racially motivated terrorism. Okay. This isn't the Islamic State or some outside movement as well as we know it right now.
This is, of course, a story that has already reverberated around the world. We know that President Obama is currently in Warsaw, Poland right now, to attend the NATO summit there. But he had to speak twice on this issue already, just recently calling this a callous, calculated killing. But earlier, he spoke about the families that have been affected by the two recent killings of African-American men. And he suggested that the concerns that minorities are statistically more likely to be shot by police officers is in fact the truth, that it is a fact. And here's what he had to say.
When we see data that indicates disparities in how African Americans and Latinos may be treated in various jurisdictions around the country, then it's incumbent on all of us to say we can do better than this. We are better than this.
And of course, Jeffrey, the president again had to speak again following the Dallas shootings. What did he say?
Here's a statement that the president made today in Warsaw at the NATO summit. And this is in regards to what happened overnight in Dallas. He said, "There is no possible justification for these kinds of attacks or any violence against law enforcement. Anyone involved in the senseless murders," he said, "will be held fully accountable. Justice will be done."
And we're sure justice will be done eventually as soon as we find out exactly what happened here. But these incidents, what does this tell you, Jeffrey, about the state of race relations in this country?
This has been going on for years. If you want to put it in a broad context, we can take this back almost 50 years to the emergence of what was called the Black Panther Party in the 1960s, which waged war with police departments all over the country, but most specifically in Oakland, California, where there was a very famous incident where Fred Hampton was murdered by the police. And over the years, there has been a feeling, a sensation in the cities, in minority communities, that the police do not help them, that they're an army of occupation. Now, this is not my statement. These are statements that have been made by other people. But this is a perception by people in minority communities that the police are not there to, quote unquote, protect and serve, that they're there to keep an eye on them and keep their thumb on them.
And Jeff, clearly this kind of perception amongst the majority of Americans would tend to make one thing that it's possible that this could extend further, that we could see, as a result of this, perhaps even more violence, perhaps more outrage in this country.
The sad thing about life is that when something horrible like this happens, it triggers copycat incidents. Think about school shootings. Look at what happened after Columbine in the late 1990s. There was a spate of school shootings after that. I'm sure that law enforcement people all over the United States are now worried that because of a horrific incident like this, there may be other people with similar anger and similar motivations who may do the same thing.
Given the political divisions in this country, is this likely to be exploited by politicians?
There's already statements that have come out. The Trump campaign issued a statement this morning that said, "We must restore law and order. We must restore confidence of our people to be safe and secure in their homes and on the streets." Mr. Trump's statement also went on to say, "Our nation has become too divided. Too many Americans feel like they've lost hope. Crime is harming too many citizens. Racial tensions have gotten worse, not better. This isn't the American dream we all want for our children."
So again, they are already, this issue is likely to become even more politicized as we move closer to November. On the other side of this, what is happening currently in Dallas? Is that city still on lockdown? Is anyone in danger?
The police say that they are continuing their investigation. The scene has been cleared, and the IED that the dead shooter claimed that he had, to the best of my knowledge, as we are here on the air right now, we don't have information that any such IED has been located. It may have already been exploded.
We just don't know, correct?
At this point, we have no information about the IED.
Jeffrey Young, thank you so much for your rapid response on this. We at VOA are, of course, expressing our condolences to all the brave police officers and their families who lost their lives in Dallas last night. We will update this story as we learn more. Just go to voanews.com to get the latest on this developing story. We're going to take a short break right now, but when we come back, Islamic State is ramping up its terror attacks against innocent civilians in the Middle East. This is The Correspondents on Voice of America.